What's up, everyone? Welcome to Sitting with Sean. This is episode 16. Holy shit. Episode 16. I have a returning guest, my first returning guest, my dad. What's up, Dad?
What's happening? I guess this is like we were saying earlier. This is like as seen on TV products, But wait, there's more,
But wait, there's more.
You're right on.
Yep, yep. So you already gave a formal introduction of yourself, and I guess we'll do it again. You want to give a formal introduction of yourself?
Yeah, I'm Rich Young, your dad, also known as Dickie Arlen Jr. on stage, and I'm an addict.
Yep. And if you guys missed the last podcast with my dad on it, I suggest you go watch it. It's episode 14, I believe. And it's a really good one. Really good one. He talks
It's
about
11. It's 11. I've watched it a couple times.
Okay, it's 11. It's 11. I'm tired. It's Sunday morning, 9 o'clock in the morning. I'm tired. I stayed up till 3 playing Minecraft, guys. Show a little mercy here. Yeah, so in the last one, my dad spoke about his addiction and what led him down that road and what led him into recovery and some of the things that he learned along the way. And in this one, we're gonna talk about a little something different. Yeah, we're gonna talk about a little something different. We're gonna get into more of the mental stuff, the stuff that people don't really like to talk about. Everyone likes to talk about their use, but nobody likes to talk about the mental shit that happens. That kind of leads us to why we do what we do in addiction. So, yeah, you ready to get into it?
Yeah, we can get into it.
All right, let's get into it. So, a lot of us use and our substance of choice, whether it's drinking or harder stuff. Because of things that happened when we were younger. I know that was one of the reasons why I did, and ultimately one of the reasons that led me into recovery. Is that kind of the same for you?
Yeah. First, before I started where things started with that, it's important to understand that dual diagnosis is an extremely important thing. Just because you get clean or sober or whatever from your drug of choice, you start going in the program meetings and stuff like that, you may still feel real off. And, you know, and you might have some issues that, mentally that you might need to deal with. Some people don't. Me, I did to some degree. I took a different approach to it. Doesn't mean it works for everybody, but as far as how things started, the mental part started. It started when I was a kid. Again, before I picked up anything, I think we touched on that a little bit the last time. What happened was, when you feel less than, when you're in a toxic home, life and all that, when you're a kid, you feel less than, run down. A lot of competition growing up in school, where it's constantly a machismo type of thing for guys. I mean, it was tough back then for me, for guys growing up and going to school. You had to fight and all that stuff. But it started even way back. Well, some things begat that less than feeling. There's some violence in the home. Corporal punishment is certainly something I lived with, but there's a line that's drawn, I believe, in that. I remember at 5 years old, my grandfather, he's an old hard ass. I love him to death. He taught me a lot. If he got a call from grandma, because we were staying over there all the time, because God knows what mom was doing at the time, and he would, if he had to come home and correct us, one time in particular, it'd be corporal punishment, but one time in particular, I was outside and he came out back with a barber strap,
Oh
and
shit.
he's like, "Come here, boy," and I knew what was coming, so I took off running, and he chased after me, and he cracked that damn barber strap like a whip, whap, and popped me across the back of my legs and dropped me, and uh, then I just laid there and cried. And he said, "When you're done crying, you get it, come inside." And when I came inside, he gave me a hug. And he said, "Now sit down next to me and behave yourself." And that was reinforcing with love. Uh, but in the age I grew up in, uh, my the parents of my generation, they didn't tell you how to fix anything. You got your ass whipped and you're thrown in your room. There's no talking to you and trying to correct what you're doing wrong. So I never knew I was doing wrong. So I just felt like, you know, less than that. I'm just this defect at some point. You know that they're just putting the hands on me because I'm just as no good kid.
Yeah. Yeah, I can relate to that. And I'm being open and communicating, and this is something that my dad and I have talked about before. So this is for everybody else listening. I kind of felt the same way. Um, Not the corporal punishment thing, but the fact of like feeling less than. Um, like I strived to get my dad's approval, and I've said that so many times. I did as much as I could,
Yeah,
and I don't think this is something that I've told you, but I played baseball because you were a coach.
yeah,
You were a coach for Richie, and I wanted to make you proud. And I sucked at baseball, but I wanted to prove to you that I was worth it and that I deserved love, because that's what I've seen. I've seen that Richie played baseball, and that you were always there around for him. So I was like, okay, well, maybe I'll put my hand in this and he'll be there for
yeah,
me.
definitely.
And it kind of like backfired a little bit. And I was like, well, fuck that. It's not getting me anywhere. And
I
then,
remember. I do remember. I wanted to do things different. I wanted to explain to you why I punished you, but I would do it in this fucked up way. Like I'd be like, so next time you won't be such a jerk off or you're such an asshole. I would say stuff like that instead of going, okay, here's how you correct it. You know what I mean?
yeah,
If I did ever say, here's how you correct it, I added, a bunch of adjectives and stuff
yeah,
like that into it. And I was very forceful about it loud. I wasn't
yeah.
very patient with it.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And it was very hard, and you know, uh, there's a chain or like a vicious cycle that happens in families that we go through. Like, so you went through it with grandpa or my grandpa, grandma, and yours, and then I went through it with you, and then I started doing it with my kids, and I was like, oh, fucking hold on, hold the phone,
Yeah.
got to pull the
Yeah.
plug on that one.
Yeah.
Because I started to see things, happening the way that they did, and I didn't want them that way. Um, but um, and then there were a lot of times where I would do things, and just like you said, you'd be like, maybe next time you won't be so fucking stupid. I'm like, well, I'm a goddamn idiot then.
Right.
That's reality. That's a harsh reality that I
Mm.
that I started to think, and that, like you said, like I felt like I wasn't worth it and that I was worthless. And growing up as a young kid, and I'm pretty sure you can relate to that. That's a hard feeling to live with, is that
Yeah.
you feel worthless and helpless. Um, so what ended up happening that ultimately like made you snap and say, fuck this, I don't care anymore?
Well, there's several things. Growing up, it kind of branched off when I got to a certain point. Like there was a point where I would get my ass whipped, and it wouldn't even phase me. I wouldn't react. And when mom would tell dad whip his ass, and he whipped my ass, he broke a board over my ass, and it stopped bothering me after a while. It just didn't hurt physically anymore. So how that branched off was even later on, like my brother, like 11 months older than me, I learned how to fight because, these fucking people that I had to fight growing up, they couldn't hurt me any worse than I've already been hurt physically. So it branched off mental and violence. I remember I got in a fight one time with a guy, and I was beating the crap out of him. And next thing I know, I woke up and I was on the couch in the living room, and I had to go to the hospital and get stitches in this eyebrow. And what had happened was he hit me with a slapjack in the head, knocked me out, and then he was going to go in and keep beating on me with it. My brother, my brother at the time was there, and he took the slapjack from the guy, and he got me out of there. So I went to the hospital, got stitches. A week later, I got stitches out, and I came home, and my brother was standing there when I came in the door, and he goes, "Oh, what'd they say? Your stitches are out?" Yeah, I got stitches out, and he beat my ass for losing the fight again. So if I lost a fight, I got beat up again. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So now, I'm forcing myself to be more violent, and so that doesn't happen twice. And at the same time, I'm feeling like shit. I'm feeling less than, like I'm no good. And what's the point? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And when that happened, there was a snap there somewhere, where I kind of felt like I always had to incorporate violence to feel sort of accepted by a certain crowd of people.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's rough. How was your relationship with Gordon when you were growing up?
Uh, well, it was we were we were pretty tight for a while. He had an issue where he wasn't accepted as much because there's something seriously sideways with him. But I always try to include him in things with my friends, and I mean he had friends and stuff, but it wasn't the same. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
My relationship with him growing up at the time was, kind of like we were on our own. We got into fights together. I remember we beat up this kid for messing with his girlfriend, all this, high school stuff, and and like a week later after that incident, we were walking out of our yard and walking down the street, and a van pulled up, and all these kids piled out, like 10 or 20 kids piled out of the car, and they were the couple kids we beat up got a bunch of friends, and they all, they wanted to fight. So we took off, and we went around the corner, went up in someone's yard, and defended ourselves when we could. We were using like shovels and stuff, and Dad had to come and break it up. Dad and a family friend had to come and break it up. And at some point, I cut the violence out. I wasn't aiming to kill people. I was aiming people not to kill me. So I was swinging the shovel low, like at their legs and stuff. My brother's hitting them in the head and stuff. And it was, you got a firsthand look at violence.
Yeah. 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 I've heard that story quite a bit. That was a story that I was actually going to ask about. But you hit it before I could ask about it. That's pretty. That's crazy. And then when that happens, like because you grew up in the household you did with grandma and grandpa, when they were around, how did that turn out for you when you got home after with the violence and stuff?
As far as
Like
if they
like if they,
found out about it,
yeah, yeah,
well, Dad, Dad was kind of, because he was an old you know, he was from the Vietnam era and everything, and there was this man's man thing, and he kind of, you know, he didn't really, you know, I really wish I would have been kind of sat down and said, look, this isn't the way shit should be. Uh, but that isn't what happened. It was almost like a pat on the back, a rite of passage. I kind of felt accepted whenever I got into a fight and won the fight. You know, I almost came home and bragged about it. You know,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
that's no good either. You know.
Yeah. Yeah. When you're kind of like encouraged to fight and then told, hey, this is okay, then something in your brain clicks where it automatically becomes an automatic response to things, I
Yeah.
guess.
Well, yeah, it does. I that's where I learned how to go from 0 to 100.
Hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it being sort of normalized in my mind that that's the
Hmm.
way it should be. I'm
Hmm.
protecting. I'm putting up this triple firewall of, you know, this machismo. If someone says something to me, they have the right to get their ass kicked, you
Yeah.
know, and stuff like that. And don't get it wrong, I wasn't no tough guy. I lost more fights than I won, but I didn't care about. I just cared about you're going to respect me because I felt less than, you know what I mean. So that
Yeah.
fueled all of it. All that
Yeah.
kind of, you know, kind of fell in the same bonfire that was going on in my brain. You know?
Yeah. Yeah. So moving past that, after when you started growing up and you're out of the house, how did all the how did the anger and and I guess the rage, how did that transition into young adulthood?
Well, you know, there was so many incidents of violence and having a smart ass attitude, you know, and not having a reason for it as to why, you know, why I lose a job or something like that. All my, you know, my friends kind of, you know, it was enabled by the group of people that I chose to be around because, you know, at one point when I was in this one thing, the group, I was in, you know, unspoken enforcer. I started swinging. That's when the fight started. Um, in other cases, you know, if I was renting a room or an apartment, there's always a fucking problem. You know what I mean? There's
Yeah.
always a problem, and not every time was it me, but I always felt like I had to defend off people who thought, you know, that I felt like thought less of me. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So
Hmm.
they're the enemy right away. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah. Absolutely. And if you set your sights on somebody, that person's not, the situation's not done until they're eliminated or they're out of the game.
Right.
Yeah.
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 I
I can
mean,
def-
we got plenty of stories about that, but you know,
yeah.
yeah,
It,
there's some things that you want to say, you know, there's some things I may say, some things I won't probably, you know, because it isn't fair to people
yeah.
to to uh to do that to them, no matter what they are. You know what I mean? In hindsight, I look at it and go, that's not fair to just, you know, go from a 0 to 100 and just bash someone's head in, or in a relationship, throwing shit and breaking shit. Uh, no one deserves that. And, you know, if you can't have a fucking handle on that shit, you need to, or, you know,
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. I can definitely relate. You know, it's, I would go, and you've seen this quite a few times. I go from 0 to 100 like that. And
yeah,
I think, you pointed something out to me, and I kind of discounted it at first, but I can, sitting back and thinking about it, I said, man, I just can't figure this the fuck out. I said, I get so goddamn angry so quick and I can't figure it out. And like it's an automatic inset. And you're like, it's because of the lifestyle that you grew up in when you're in the army.
mm-hmm.
And I was like,
It's what you're
in the
used
back,
to.
yeah, in the back of my mind, I was like, no, 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 that can't be it. That can't. But in reality, that is just one portion of it, because and I really thought about this, the culture of the army, like when you were doing something and you were kind of sucking a little bit at things, they would say get angry.
Yeah.
Or if you're out on the battlefield and you're having a hard time, they say get angry.
Yeah.
And so you learn that as a secondhand trait, get angry. And so no matter what the emotion is, you get angry and you use that as fuel, but they don't teach you how to use that as fuel. They just say get angry,
Yeah.
and then it's not displaced. But then growing up, like seeing the anger and seeing the rage is kind of a learned trait too, and hereditary as well.
Yeah. When the funny thing is when you go into relationships, and someone says something that you don't like to you, that's supposed to care about you or something, and in your mind you're like, oh, this person just crossed the line with me and is intentionally trying to hurt me, so it's game on. And then that used to be like saying fucking screwed up shit to people, to the person I'm sleeping with,
Yeah.
or to a best friend, you know what I mean? And then it was always later on, I'm sorry, I'm sorry in hindsight. Well, the sorries only goes so far, uh, because an apology is really an action word. You can't, apologizing should only be said once. And if you keep apologizing for the same thing you do, you're not sorry for it.
No.
You just can't. You're just trying to appease it. So there's a lot of stuff that's intertwined and all that.
I've noticed that society says I'm sorry about everything,
Yeah.
and even if they didn't have a hand in it. And when I started my recovery, I noticed that really quick off the bat, because I'd always say, "Oh, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry," even if like I didn't do anything wrong, and I would say I'm sorry, and it became an action. It became that button, that automatic response, that button,
Yeah.
and I got to a point where I said I'm gonna stop saying I'm sorry, because it doesn't mean shit anymore.
No.
It doesn't mean anything.
No. I mean that's true. To me, it's kind of like this. When I hear people talk, let's talk, say it in mental disorder, okay, or a disease, or cancer, or anything like that, when I hear people go, well, my cancer is, or my disease is, or my depression is, I never ever got on board with saying my heart problem or my heart attack, because that implies it owns you. Because in the same token, as you're trying to be strong, if you make it part of you, like, and say my this, my that, it implies it runs your life. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? So for me, I say, yeah, I had this heart problem. They put a stent in my heart. Now that implies I own it and it doesn't dictate my life. You know what
yeah,
I mean? And so I
absolutely.
never got on board with that apologetic. As far as all that. I did it as I did things as being a living amends. Once I put all the pieces together,
Yeah,
Until then, I just drove myself further down a rabbit hole and feeling like dog shit about myself. You know what I mean?
um, yeah. That's why, like, you were talking about, your diagnosis or your illness, owning you and labeling that and putting a label on yourself. Like,
Yeah.
I get a lot of flack for it, but if I go to a 12-step meeting, I don't say I'm an alcoholic.
Yeah.
And people are like, "Well, this is a meeting for alcoholics," and I say I'm a person in long-term recovery, because to me, my recovery is more powerful than the disease that I suffer from.
Yeah. Yeah. My thing is this. You hear me say addictive personality a lot.
Mhm.
That is a part of me.
Yeah,
That's chemically made up in my being. Okay, but you know, it's real. I'm hard pressed to say my addiction. I'll say I'm an addict,
yeah,
but I won't say it doesn't control me anymore. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
You know, addictive personality, you got to kind of keep corralled. You know what I mean? But
Oh yeah.
it doesn't have to own you. You
Yeah.
know, depression doesn't have to own you. And I found that out the hard way too.
Oh yeah. Absolutely. All right. So moving forward, you noticed that some things were happening in your relationship, that were a direct result of you. What were some of those things that were happening?
Well, um, there's a lot of times, man, where I'd have these arguments um, with, you know, wife or girlfriend or something, and I would I would automatically mentally go down this rabbit hole again. And when I felt like I was losing the battle, and they're not saying to me what I want them to say in this argument, I would just say, you know what, I'm done with this. I'm just gonna fucking kill myself. And I would say that stuff lightly. I mean, I wanted to. I certainly did. But it was like, how dare you put that on somebody? You
Yeah.
know, I look back on it and go, how do you put that on somebody? You know, and
Yeah.
that's just a terrible thing to say. That's emotional abuse. That's mental abuse. You're levying that on somebody. It's a be all end all. And then after I remember this, after arguments had died down, I would continue it as they're feeling guilty and clamming up, because that's what the fuck I wanted them to do, is shut up. Okay.
Yeah.
At the time, I would keep levying this guilt on them. And it's a guilt I probably felt myself. So I was just saying, I was transferring it to them, you know?
Yeah. 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 Um, that's heavy stuff.
Yeah.
That's some heavy stuff. Um, how would you feel when they started like shutting down and feeling guilty and stuff like that? Like, how would you feel? Would that feel like super empowering? Like you're like, oh shit.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, see, now they get it. Now they understand me. Just shut the
Yeah.
fuck, you know what I mean? And that's just, it's another part of addictive personality or dual diagnosis when you talk about that stuff. That's all that falls under a category of, you feel like shit about yourself, uh so you make yourself feel better by running someone else down, because after all, everybody else looked down on you. I still run with this, and I think everybody does uh feel this way at some point. But I used to use it as a crutch, and I would say I walked uphill every day of my life being judged, and I have, and I think everybody else has too. But I would use that, you know, like, feel sorry for me, but you don't get why the fuck I'm like this, and I'm entitled to be like this. That was my mindset. You know,
Yeah.
and you know what you got into when you got with, that bullshit, all that bullshit, all those lies you tell yourself. You know,
Yeah. It's like one of those scenarios where you feel like you're the only person that went through it and nobody else has.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I
I
can.
mean, yeah. Whereas in reality, I'm not unique. That's the
Yeah.
reality of it.
Yeah. Absolutely. So when did the depression start setting in for you?
Oh, it was, yeah, at a young age, but where it started dominating me and everything else is when I would do all this damage, um, and I would use, in arguments, I would, use that stuff in typical form, and then whenever something was done and over with, and again, it wasn't like this with every relationship. I'm talking about the ones that I had a true part in destroying. Not every relationship that I was in was my fault at breaking up, because there were times I was in and out of this mentality. You know what I mean? There were times where I tried to make an honest go, and here we go. I got screwed over, and this is why I should act like this from now on, because I didn't do it here, and they're fucking with me. At least I can protect myself. And that was the depression talking to me.
Yeah.
So it would kick in when I would lose somebody important in my life, whether it be burying my grandfather, burying my grandmother, my aunt dying, my uncle dying, uh, losing an important girlfriend, realizing that this is very toxic and I've got to make this shitty decision because of them, is what I would say in my mind. And that's not true either. There's both of us. And then I'd lose a marriage. My first marriage has certainly played, certainly one I can put on the list that I had a lot to do with. Because I carried that mentality. Not that I wanted it over, but I carried that mentality of, and I would use that shit to prolong whatever was there,
Yeah, definitely. I know. Well, I wasn't there obviously for when Grandpa died, but when Aunt Marie died and passed away, man, like that, I could visually see that took a huge toll on you.
Yeah.
You
Yeah,
know,
she was one of the few people growing up that accepted me just who I was and would defend me as a young kid, and same with my grandparents and stuff like that. That was a huge loss. It was like, it's hard to even explain, you know what I mean? What
yeah,
happened. Something snapped in me there, you know.
yeah. Aunt Marie was an amazing human being.
Yes, she was.
That's all I have to say is like she was an amazing human being for the time that she was around in my lifetime. She was awesome. I remember there was times where, and I'm pretty sure you can relate, grandma would drop us off at her house and she'd be like, they can't do this, that, and the third. And as soon as as soon as grandma walks out, Aunt Marie's like, yep, throw all that out the window.
Yeah. I remember, yeah, I can identify with that when I was young, when the movie Jaws came out. We weren't allowed to go see it. And I was, Aunt Marie, I would go hang out with Aunt Marie and we'd go swimming in the pool at her apartment complex and stuff like that, or condo complex, wherever she lived. And she took me to see Jaws, and my mom had a complete meltdown over that, and they got in arguments. And then she took me to see the Blues Brothers. I was absolutely not allowed to see that. My God, And there were times actually that my Aunt Marie defended me regarding the onslaught of religious stuff being forced down my throat, and she would say stuff like, "There's not a wonder that they're fighting back and railing back and rebelling back because you are imposing a will and then you're putting in a possibility. There's no way that they're ever going to be good enough by these standards you're placing before them,
Yeah.
And there were big blowouts about it,
Oh,
In hindsight, I found all that out,
yeah. Yeah. I remember when she would drop us off, we weren't allowed to watch like Wizard of Oz or watch Star Wars, and that was the first thing we did.
Yeah,
She's
right.
like,
Put it right
she
on.
was she's a rebellious type, and I really enjoyed it. But she was a logical rebellious.
Well,
She wasn't like a nowadays rebellious where you do stupid shit just because you can do it.
well, there's one thing about her. What she believed in was freedom.
Yeah.
Freedom to think how you want, you know, freedom to be able to make your own decisions and not have things forced upon you. That's the one thing that I had a definite connection with her too, because that's all I wanted is to have the
Yeah.
freedom, you know what I mean? And she was an advocate for that all through my life. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Yeah. She was a pretty amazing human being.
mm,
Um, and yeah, that time when she passed away, when great grandma Dunlap passed away, those are some rough times for all of us, because uh I grew up and I was pretty heavily connected with Grandma Dunlap, and she died almost a year to the date after 9/11, so it's pretty rough.
mm,
Um, But when Aunt Marie died, I remember like some of the events that surrounded that, man. Like Gordon wasn't coming to the funeral, which was a big uprising. The car broke down on the highway.
Yeah, yeah.
We sat on the highway. That shit was terrifying. I remember that. I'm like, even to this day, if I'm driving, man, like I'm like, okay, I really hope these rods don't blow out, the pistons don't blow out of the engine.
It's funny. I didn't go to my aunt's uh, funeral,
Yeah.
and years later, I had to answer for that.
Yeah.
Uh, and that's a hard thing when my cousin, her son, who you know he and I've known since the day he was born, and we've always been real with each other. And he flat out asked me, "Why the fuck didn't you come to my mom's funeral?" And I had to tell him I was fucked up on drugs. I had to face that, and that sucked because we're hardcore, we're Irish and all that. You're facing the wrath like that. If you're not, you might get your ass kicked whether you're honest or not. But you got to be honest, and that's what it was. And my excuse for doing drugs and being fucked up at that time, she's gone. That's the only person ever advocated for me, so I'm just going to get fucked up. And then I ended up getting fucked up and not being able to be there. I was MIA, man.
Yeah.
And those are things I had to learn to forgive myself for.
Yeah. Now when you gave him that answer, how did he react?
Amazingly, but in true form, and from our lineage, he goes, "Okay, thanks for being honest." He wasn't happy, but we didn't end up in a fight, and he knew I was fucking honest about it. I appreciate him for, I think he forgave me for it. We never talked about it after that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He asked me, and I told him, and that's it.
Yeah. Greg's another awesome dude.
Yeah, he is. Yeah,
Yeah.
he's cool. He all right.
Yeah, I really like Greg. My relationship with him wasn't like the strongest like you and him have, but he's one of those people I know that if I'm in trouble that I can call and he'll be there.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, he'd help you out. He might bitch you out on the back end of it, like what the fuck were you thinking? But he'll help you out. I mean,
Yeah,
he's a very rational person in thinking when it comes to you know, okay, you did this, in anything, I guess it is. He knows how to rationalize things
yeah,
in a healthy way. So,
yeah. Which in our family is very rare.
yeah, well, I mean, yeah, we used to do it under the guise of whatever we were on,
Yeah, yeah,
which never worked out.
yeah. So the depression later on in life, how did that affect like relationships and even your mental status?
What's that now? Say again.
So how did the depression like the depressive state that you're in, because you said that you were in and out of it, how did that affect like your relationships with not just like intimate partners and friends but people around you?
Well, a lot of people, you can tell when when you dictate the room's mood. When I'm in full swing of that depression, I'm gonna make sure everybody else feels whatever I'm feeling at the time. I go to a party and I'll just be in a shitty mood, or go to work be in a shitty mood, and I'll make sure everybody else is feeling that way. Uh, and there are people in my life that would say something like, "Hey, man, chill out. You're all right." And that would piss me off. I'd be like, "You better watch what the fuck you say to me."
Yep.
You know,
Yeah.
and I'm pushing people away, keeping them at arm's length, because they're bound to do something where I'm going to have to respond, and then here we go again. Someone else will let me down. That in depression, that's what it is. Everybody's letting me down. It's not me letting them down. You know,
Yeah. Yeah. We
so,
see what's wrong with the world, we don't see what's wrong with us.
right? Well, if I look at the world, then I don't have to look at myself.
Exactly. And it's so much easier to point fingers and say, hey, I am the way that I am because of your actions, because of the way that you're acting.
Yeah, the end justifies the means all the time.
Absolutely. Absolutely. 100%. And I can relate to that, bringing the mood of the place where you're at. Cause like, with Michelle, like Michelle feeds off of how I feel and I feed off of how she feels, which is weird. It's a weird dynamic. And that's kind of hard, because if she's having a shit day, then I'm going to have a shit day.
Yeah.
But she was like, she presented this question to me: why can't you ever be happy? And I was like, well, it's not that I don't want to be happy.
I am fucking happy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was like, it's not that I don't want to be happy. I
Right.
want to be happy. I just don't fucking know how to. And and that was hard. But then other people start to see, like you said, other people start to see where you're at. So I would go to her parents' house, and they would see, they'd be like, dude, what's wrong with him? Because he's always coming over here, he's always sleeping, he never has anything to say, he doesn't want to interact with us. But that's not what it was at all. It was just like I was fucking depressed and I couldn't vocalize it. I couldn't say like I'm depressed.
I'd be depressed, and then I would justify. I wouldn't say I'm depressed. I'd be like, I'm just staying to myself, and inside, I justify it to myself because I don't need them judging me either.
Yeah.
So if I'm asleep, you can't judge me if I'm saying nothing.
Yeah.
I've done that a bunch.
Yeah. Yeah. So the suicidal ideations, when did those start setting in for you?
Ooh. Oh, there's a couple times. I remember, well, they came to this full head after my last marriage ended. Now, mind you, I was clean of drugs, right? But didn't make me, I still wasn't well.
Yeah.
And this is years after I had gone into the program. And I remember a time, I just went on the road, I was by myself, just traveling back and forth. And that in itself, it was healthy for me to be away, to figure myself out. But for me to be alone, the amount of time that I was also unhealthy.
Yeah.
I thought it was cool because, I had what was left of my stuff. I had some stuff in a storage thing. I was living down south, way deep south, and I had most of my stuff in the storage unit, and I had my clothes and my acoustic guitar with me. Not the whole time wasn't bad, but when I would have something really cool happen, it would fuel my depression. See, it could be like that, but it'll never be like that on an everyday term. Like there's times where, like I'm in Nowhereville, Arizona, Two Guns, Arizona. I said, I'm going to go hang out somewhere. I go to get something to eat. And it's just one horse town, dirt roads, literally in this place, Two Guns. And so there's a bar, diner to get, I went in to get some wings or something like that, or pizza. And I'm sitting there, and there's a guy playing acoustic guitar. And so I started talking to him in between his times of playing. He said, go get your guitar. So I found myself on this, in this, dusty old fucked up town. And I'm playing acoustic guitar with someone I never met, for people I've never seen, in a place I've never been to. I said, this is the type of life for me. And it happened in Las Vegas on the Strip, where I was playing with a blues guy one time. But all that stuff, all those great memories I had, got balled up into, I have nothing. Even though I would rather just be in a trailer in the fucking desert, like Michael Madsen and Kill Bill, and be alone, it fed the depression even more to a break. It was taking me to a breaking point. And there was time where my back went out real bad because I had back problems before. and I had a reoccurrence of it. I couldn't move. I'm in California. I'm in the truck, and I was calling you.
Yeah.
And we were conversing, and I said, I'm done. I'm going to fucking kill myself. I'm done. There's too much. I can't. There's no consistency left. There's no this. There's no that. I have nothing left, left in me. I've done everything I want to do. That was my running saying. I've done everything I wanted to do in life. Fuck it. The rest of it's just bullshit now. I've played on stages. I've played music. I've done this. I've traveled the whole world, traveled the country several times. I know probably more small towns in this country than most people I know, and all this stuff. I've done everything I had to do. So now, why don't we end it on my fucking terms? I'm tired of fucking life grabbing me by the nuts and kick me in them. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to go out on my terms. And that was that time. And you had enough of it. And I think you said, I'm not going to listen to this anymore. Mm-hmm. And so that was a really bad spot. That was one of 2 incidents. I didn't attempt it. I was that far from it at that time. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean?
Yeah, there was one instance that I remember. That one as well. But there's one instance, I think it was right before that marriage ended, and you called me and you said, I'm sitting in my living room, I've got a gun, and I'm gonna end it.
Yeah.
And like, I sat there on the phone with you for about like 45 minutes. I did everything in my power to like divert that the thought process, and there wasn't anything I could do. And you're like, don't call the police, because I'm gonna have them kill me. And I was like, look, that's not the way to do it either.
Yeah.
But I was like, he has too much respect for the police to even fucking do that.
Yeah. So, I was in this mindset that fuck it all. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. And I ended up calling the Erie police, and they sent somebody out there, and you were so pissed at me. You're like, I fucking told you. And I was like, you can't control me from here, man.
Yeah.
You can't control me from here. And
the weird thing is, I know all the cops, they were like, hey, Rach, you all right? Yeah, get the fuck out of here. And that's kind of how that went down, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. And like, so, that was pretty heavy for me. And in the back of my mind, I can articulate this now, is like, hearing that, on an occasional basis, the automatic response is like, for me at the time was he's not gonna fucking do it. He's not gonna fucking do it. If he was gonna do it, he wouldn't say he did it. And I found out on the news, just knowing you.
Yeah, right. Do something wild off the cuff,
Yeah, yeah. But the second thought is, I fucking hope he doesn't.
Yeah.
And
no one wants to see anybody do that.
Well, I mean, it's not just that. It's I haven't even started my relationship with my dad yet.
Right.
Like it's still there.
We were talking, but it was kind of rocky.
Yeah. And I was like, in the back of my mind, I even went home and I talked to that wife about it, and I was like, I was like, this can't happen, because I haven't had the relationship that I'm meant to have with my dad. And there's so many things that I wanted to say that I hadn't said yet. And there was so many memories that I wanted to create that I haven't created yet. And so if he does this, like, it's going to rob me of that. Right. And it was selfish of me to say that, but in a way it was me going back to, like, as a kid, I haven't really, gotten that acceptance yet. And I hadn't gotten that acceptance to that point. Yeah. And that's what I wanted. I just wanted, I just wanted you. And like, I even talked to her, and I said, if there was a way that I could fly down there and get him and bring him up here, things might change. Yeah. But I knew that's not what you needed.
Yeah. Yeah. There was a lot going on in that last marriage. There was a different dynamic that, where really things were going good, and then they just went bad. And it takes two, obviously. Yeah. But I had reached a point where, Okay, we're gonna be married. Everything's cool. Everything's great. We're going to concert. We're doing all the things. We're living our life. And I this is where I say, don't ever fucking brag about what you got. May not be there the next day. And I openly bragged about the marriage. And come to find out, one of us wasn't who we said we was. And without trashing the other person, let's just say it wasn't me who did that. So it really devastated me. And I think at that time it was coming to the end of the relationship, and I knew it. I could tell. You can tell that if you're in a relationship, it's going sour. It's coming. I say, here it comes. And it did, and it ended horrifically, and so that which led me out on the road. But that other time on the road where I literally almost did, I touched on it a little bit. The last podcast, I was I pulled in a restaurant. I'm coming up this mountain. I'm like, I'm done. I'm going to fight. And I was out of my brain. I couldn't get my thinking back here. I couldn't get myself centered at all. I'm like, I'm done. I'm outside of myself almost, I said, this is it right here, because this is a new feeling for me. And so I pulled over, and again, I'm on this rock, and I was, going to jump. The rock was overhanging a highway, and there's semis and cars going by. All I had to do is jump, and it would have been over quick, And that's when a higher being stepped in. And from that point, I had learned, okay, that's not what we're supposed to be fucking doing here. And I started to move myself away from it, but I wasn't better yet at the time.
Yeah.
And I had to go through a couple more things I had to go through. Well, I had a relationship with somebody down south. I ended up in the hospital one time because of this person. I just grabbed it. I was a magnet for another toxic person. I guess maybe I hadn't had enough pain yet in my last marriage. I had to have a little bit more. I ended up in the hospital. I couldn't see out my one eye. And I think fucking Jackson, Mississippi or some fucking weird place like that. And because she physically fucking abused me. And, I probably had a lot of my mouth running with that negative depressive behavior, but no one should ever be hit,
Yeah.
So that ended up being done. And, and then that happened. And then the heart attack thing and all that. And that's where I started learning after a while, slowly, that I got to stop letting this be my depression and started letting it be a depressive part of my life that I can move past. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And you hit on it earlier, and you said, you weren't always in that state, that depressive state. And that's something that a lot of people don't understand, is like, especially people that don't suffer from depression, which I think a good majority of people do, but it's not labeled as depression.
Yeah.
Is that it's not always depression. Like, I'll have times where I'm just happy, I'm talkative, I'm great, I'm fine, and it doesn't even have to be anything at all. Nothing. I can be in a great fucking mood, and then just all of a sudden, boom, there is no thought. It's just like, boom, back in the depression. And it just continues to decline until there's something that brings me back up. And it could be an interaction with somebody. It could be talking to you. It could be interaction with Michelle, or it could be, just me changing, what I'm doing.
That's the identifier right there for me. And why I say dual diagnosis is important, because addictive personality and depression, that's both of them right there.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh, that's absolutely. Absolutely. And so, what was that like? What was the defining moment where you said, okay, enough's enough. I do have to get some help for this shit, or I have to figure it out.
Well, It was a moment. I mean, not a moment, but a progression. From that point on, I started working towards, okay, what am I going to do in my life? I went, all right, stay on the road. That's what it is right now. This is what I had to accept. And there's no big decisions need to be made. Nothing has to be done in a hurry. Just accept things the way they are right now and work yourself. Because if you're not working on yourself, you're no good. I mean, I'm no good for anybody if I'm carrying that same thing I was always doing in different relationships. How can I move the fuck away from it? And so one day, who I'm with now, her and I started talking, and there was an interest. Obviously, there was a rekindling of feelings, and very, very good rekindling of feelings. And so we were like, okay, let's get a place, where I'm at now. And so we got this place, and I went on the road again, driving a truck. And she called me. I was like out for the 5th week, and this is after we moved here. And she called me. She goes, "I got to talk to you about something." I said, "Okay." She goes, "This you being gone all the time, I can't do it. We have to make a decision." I said, "Oh, okay." She goes, "I want you off the road." I said, "I don't have another job lined up. And we need money." And she goes, "Well, we're gonna have to figure it out, but you got to come off the road." So I was like on my way to Florida at the time. I said, "I can be home in the next 2 weeks. Is that acceptable?" She said, "Yes." So I did a couple other runs. I think my last run was from Denver back this way, and came off the road. She followed me down to Deep South in our car. I dropped the truck off, turned around without a job, came back up here, and we started living a life. Now, was it perfect? No. Um, you know, but wait, there's more.
Yeah.
So that
Something
the
better to come.
change started, what I mean? The change was in progress there. You know what I mean? Because
Yeah.
when she said, "I want you on the road, I can't do this, I'm not built for this," it gave me a feeling that she loved me and accepted me and wanted me around. And that kind of fed some positive stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. And earlier you said that you were really comfortable being on your, being out on the road on your own, and but there's a difference between being out on the road on your own and being alone and making yourself feel alone.
Yeah,
And that's something that I noticed. And when you went back out, I was like, man, he's not going to do good out by himself, just
I
fucking out
didn't.
there.
I didn't.
No, no, no. And I was like, he's always grown up around people, and like he's always been around people. He's always put himself around people, or. And I kind of, it sounds fucked up, but you always kind of put yourself in the center of people.
Yeah,
Um, and I was like, he's not going to do good by himself, completely alone.
yeah.
You know, you were a truck driver for a long time, but you always had, you always came back to something. And this, you didn't have anything to come back to.
It's funny. It's funny how I said, like in the last podcast, I don't like people. I'm working on that,
Yeah,
but I always loved being on stage.
yeah,
And I was on stage. The thing is, I was on stage and I was safe here, and the
yeah,
people were there.
yeah,
You know what I mean? And
yeah,
I can associate that, but you're not going to get to know me. You're only going to
yeah,
know Dickie Arlen Jr.
yeah.
And um, and that was unhealthy too. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So
Oh yeah.
yeah, but in the same token, I find it group appeal to be around and all that. But I think the whole thing about I don't like people, and I'm still working on the fact that I should not care what the fuck people think about me. For the most part, I'm there, but that shit can creep in your mind. You know what I
Oh
mean?
yeah. Oh yeah.
And you can feel less than any moment if
Oh
you
yeah.
do those daily maintenance things.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And like I said in the last podcast, and I'll say again, man, Margaret, she's an amazing human being.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
just simply amazing woman. I don't know too many women that would put up with our shit.
right, right.
But then
Well,
again,
she put it on the fucking table for me one time.
hmm hmm
We had some arguments, and I said some shit that was past a boundary, and um, you know, there was this time, you know, we'd have an argument, and then afterwards, I got I'm working on some things, everything else. There came this point where we had this argument, and we don't argue much anymore because when you eliminate the stupid shit, that you bring to the table, then it tends to flow a lot better. Her and I mesh very well together, but I would always get something in my fucking head. I'm a very black and white person.
yeah,
She's not so much a black and white person. There's a lot of gray area that gives herself room to believe and move and all that in her thinking. I'm not. It's like, God damn it, it's this way, not that way.
hmm
And so the one time she put it on the table for me, this has got to fucking stop. And I started reflecting back, and I go, this is what I've done before. And why am I doing this? Because this is the person I always wanted in my life. Why am I doing this to her? Not
yeah,
doing it to her, but it's coming out in me. It's not intentionally being done to her. So now it's more like second nature now. There's no reason to get upset. I was, it's like I came into this relationship. Why am I still ready to fight?
hmm
There's no reason to. There's nothing to fight about.
yeah,
You get what you want in life because it's given to you. Okay, dummy, here. See if you can't screw this up, your higher power says.
hmm
And you find yourself doing stupid shit.
yeah,
Little stupid shit that I may not see, but it was affecting certain things. And, do you care enough about it to work on it to change it? Or you say, no, it's going to be my way. Well, that second part, it's my way, has never worked in my fucking life.
mm
It's a compromise. You know,
every time that we've let ourselves get in the way, something bad has happened.
mm Everybody says, well, relationship or friendship or anything, you got to meet 50-50. I don't believe that. I believe you got to go 100% to them, they 100% to you.
Oh yeah, yeah,
It's not 50-50 because for me, being a black and white thinker, that's only fucking 50%. You know,
yeah, yeah. Absolutely, I agree 100%. It's funny, 100%.
uh,
But anyways, yeah, I can relate. I had that breaking situation with Michelle. There was a boundary set there that I didn't know, and it was fucked up. I hold a lot of the same traits as you, and I've said this before, and I say this to other people. But I say, if you see me, you see my dad.
yeah,
And like I said in the last podcast, people used to get us mixed up when they would call the house and I'd pick up, or we had the same mannerisms, same, thought process, everything. It's crazy. I'm a mere spitting image of you, minus the beard.
yeah.
um but there was a boundary that was set down that I crossed, that Michelle, I didn't know about, and I shouldn't have said it anyways, but I said it. And this is the one time that she said, if you say that shit to me again, I'm gone. And I didn't want to lose her because I lost everything in my life at that up to that point.
Right.
You know, I lost my parents. You were back in my life, but I didn't. I know that feeling of loss. I've lost marriages. I've lost my daughter. At that point, she wasn't
Whether
really an
whether it
active.
was from your behavior or maybe not,
Yeah,
but you
yeah.
kept incurring loss after loss.
Yeah, yeah. I couldn't suffer another loss, especially the one that, uh, like I love. I say this a lot, but I really mean it. Like I love Michelle to death. She's an amazing human being. She has the work ethic that I don't see a lot of people have, and sometimes blindly placed work ethic. But she's getting there, and it's paying off for her. But I said something, and she said, if you say that shit to me ever again, I'm leaving. And I don't, and I made a promise to her, and I made a promise to myself that I'll never say that shit again or anything to that liking.
I mean, there's things like here. I mean, ever since we had that one standoff, I like to call it. I said, I got to take a look at this. I got to do something about it. As long, the greatest thing is there's people in your life that, like Margaret, that very forgiving. She's like, here's the option. You know, if you choose to fucking work on it, we can move on from here, and it's forgotten.
Yeah.
If you choose to continue down this path, it's not going to be good. At some point, she stands her ground, just like I do in certain situations.
Yeah.
And everything else, but you got to be able to do it in a healthy way. And I found myself fucking starting to resort back to stupid shit, like little stuff, and it doesn't matter. None of that fucking matters. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
None of that little stupid shit matters. And that's a hard thing to let go. It's all part of, look, I hate to use it, but it's true. Everybody deals with trauma in their life on some different levels.
Yeah.
And look, okay, shit happened. It was traumatic. A lot of shit happened. I mean, I was stabbed.
Yeah.
I
remember that.
Yeah. I mean, I've had a lot of shit happen in my life. It's been a hell of a roller coaster ride, but I invited a lot of it. And so that's not anybody's fault. It's not even my fault at some point. I've already made amends for it and everything else. Why do I got to let it continue to affect me? You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And so now, and I've heard you say this quite frequently, not on here, but in our conversations, I'm on the hunt for peace. What does that mean to you?
Every day I don't get up and do something stupid, I'm one step closer to peace. Every time I don't let someone's behavior at work, which happens quite frequently, I don't let people affect me, and or I'm able to move from the situation quicker instead of dwelling on it. Any chance that I get to go, I like I said, I haul ass home after work because this is our place of peace. A house that you live in should be your place of peace, and I get back to it because A, it's a place that her and I built. B, she loves me unconditionally, no matter where I came from or what have you. She was there early on when things were forming in my life. And so she understands. She's put we put the puzzle pieces together between those two time periods. And as long as I can go, I call her at lunch every day. Hey, how's work going? This goddamn dickhead, and all this.
Yeah.
And verbalizing instead of holding it in. If I can verbalize something, I'm good. But when I hold it in, that's where it gets bad. It starts to turn into poison.
Yeah.
Yeah. She told me a story that kind of fits the narrative of changing over from letting mental shit fuck with you too. There's sort of the same difference. Where she read this thing to me yesterday. It's called A Glitch in the Matrix.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a guy that would come home every day, and there was this outlet next to his bed. He would plug his phone in, let it charge overnight, every night. Okay. Well, this was going on for many months or whatever. And the one time he got to work and his phone was dead. It's like, what the hell? I had it plugged in all night. And he went home and he went to plug in. He had his whole bedroom set up, his bed set up, where he could get to his phone while it was plugged in. He went to plug it in, and that outlet wasn't there anymore.
Mm.
The outlet was on the other side of the room. So he switched the room back around.
Yeah.
And went to that. And so the glitch in the mate, that story kind of is the same way. You can go to the same thing and everything's fine. But when there's a change, you need to be able to change with it, and I try and roll with the changes more, you know what I mean,
Yeah.
than to let it affect me. I mean, we talk about her day. I mean, some of the shit she told me was like, it's stupid, but we bounce it off each other, not against each other.
Yeah.
And that in itself is very therapeutic for me, because then I don't have to carry it the rest of the day.
Yeah. It's an open line of communication,
Right.
which is very, very, very healthy. And it's, and sometimes that healthiness, that healthy relationship is uncomfortable because you're like, when the fuck is it going to end? Like, I'm waiting for
Waiting for
that
something
person
to
to do.
blow up, something to come undone. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. But the reality is we start self-sabotaging, and I've done that a lot.
Well, that was the point I think she was making to me in that little head to head, that heart to heart, I guess, is this got to stop, And I realized, it's easy to self sabotage because that's just, everything's gone away in my life, and
Hmm.
but then she made me understand in that conversation, it doesn't have to go away. This doesn't have to go away.
Yeah. Yeah.
Some of the reactions and stuff have to go away. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
No one has to tolerate one another, and that goes for me. I don't tolerate certain things, and I vocalize them to her. And we do it in a kind way now. And we don't go at each other anymore. I found 99% of any time we argue, which wasn't a lot, but 99% of that's even gone because, hey, work on myself. Therefore, I can be of use to somebody else, especially the ones closer to me.
Absolutely. Yeah, I used to self sabotage a lot in my current relationship. I'd wait for the shoe to drop, and I'm like, you know what? Like, I'm not gonna let that shoe drop because I'm gonna push her away before she even has the opportunity to walk away.
'Cause I know what's coming.
Yeah, because I know exactly what's coming. It happens just like this every time. There's a timeline. I see a pattern, and this pattern is this, but that pattern doesn't necessarily fit every situation.
Right. Yeah.
And
I mean,
yeah,
lo-
so it's
the
a
people.
very go ahead.
No, I mean the people that are dealing with mental or dual diagnosis and stuff like that. Again, it's a process. You're not just because I got the program, you know, pretty quick. Didn't mean I was better. It took many years past that
Hmm.
to even start to go, okay, because I can sit there and go, I know what's wrong with me, but you can't seem to stop.
Yeah,
You gotta search for the answer, and if it takes as long as it does, it's going to take as long as it's going to take, regardless. It's your path, but you gotta again say, God, Odin, whoever, your higher power. I've heard this for, they'll move a mountain for you, but you got to bring a shovel and help. You got to show up.
yeah,
You
yeah,
know, you can't just go, why aren't you doing for me while you're doing the same stupid shit? That's what I learned from me. You know what I mean?
yeah, yeah. A lot of us, we look at situations, and I've noticed this, and this is, without getting too deep into Christianity or religion, one of the reasons why I disagree with the modern Christian movement is because a lot of things I see is I'll pray for it and it will come. Well, to a degree, you're right, but to a degree, you're completely wrong because there's work to be done. And if you're not doing that work, if you're not putting that work in to make your life different, nothing in your life is going to change.
Yeah. Yeah. I
Nothing at
mean,
all.
there's a lot of things that can be said in that under that umbrella. Like, I mean, people go, oh, I pray that this person doesn't die. They're in critical care. Well, for me, whoever the higher power is or whatever, it's going to happen no matter what. And you're setting yourself up for failure thinking that you're going to pray for this person to stay alive. You
Yeah.
don't know what their plan is. And the,
Yeah.
the one thing is, I can't read the future, because if I did, I would have changed a whole bunch of shit before it got here. You know,
Absolutely.
that's what we'd all do because we're selfish like that. So I just try and kind of do it day to day. You know what I mean?
Yeah. 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 It's a daily work. It really is. So So you hit a little bit about how life is different for you, and I'll just say, like, in your quest for peace, I got to go down last year and spend some time with you. It's a different feeling, completely different feeling. I don't feel like there's an expectation to live up to when I was around. Um, I feel like I could be myself for the first time in a long time, around you. Um, and there was no pressure whatsoever, and so. Uh, when I got back, I was like, man, that's what peace feels like. I fucking need some more of that.
Yeah, right. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, when you came down, there was no, okay, we have a program we got to stick to. Okay, we got a schedule. It was like, whatever. There was
Yeah.
hours on end. We would just sit in the living room. I'd
Yeah.
fall asleep and wake up, and you're there either sleeping yourself or on the phone or on the computer or whatever you were doing. But there was never an expectation of anything. That's why I don't, her and I plan, what do you want to do this weekend? Oh, let's go have wings. Other than that, there's no whatever, you know.
Yeah.
I hate, I put myself under the gun so many times. I'm tired of performing, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep. I am too. I'm tired. I get sick of having to be a face and show a smiley face, because it's not reality.
Yeah.
It's
No,
not reality.
I
We're
mean,
gonna have shit days.
you're putting an impossible expectation on yourself to have this schedule every single fucking day.
Yeah.
For me, it just I can look back and there's a catalyst. That was the catalyst was I felt less than, and then I put these impossible expectations on myself, and I did it almost knowing the response.
Hmm.
And going, well, maybe this time it won't be. That was a lie. I lied to myself. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
I just kind of roll with it now. You know,
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
as long as you roll with it. I mean, like I don't. People who deal with mental stuff, it always has the ability to be there. Uh, it also has the ability to be minimized and held at bay.
Yeah.
It's all on you. You know.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. And so, one of the other things to you, what's the difference between happiness and peace?
Well, happiness is a fleeting thought. It comes and it goes. Anybody who says they're happy 24 hours a day, I kind of got to question that.
Yeah.
I mean, saying okay, so for me, happiness would be 24 hours a day.
Yeah.
Okay, peace is more of an internal. Happiness just comes and goes. You can be mundane. You can be even upset about something, but you can't. Being happy 24 hours a day is an impossibility.
Yeah.
Peace to be able to, like when you have an issue, you don't walk around the issue. That creates more problems. If you're able to peacefully go move through the problem, you know,
Yeah.
then you're doing something. If you're going to, if you try and go around the problem, you're like, there's got to be something better around this. You got to walk through the problem, be able to walk through it with clear conscience and walk through it with peace. It's an internal thing. Peace,
Yeah.
happiness is a feeling. You know what I mean? I can
Absolutely.
be at peace and still be upset. I can be at peace and be okay. I can be it's a matter of how you move in and out of those different emotions. You do it with peace. You know,
Absolutely. Hmm.
I set myself up for failure every time I look for happiness. You know,
Yeah.
I look for peace. This fucking coffee just burnt my mouth, and that's it. You
Yeah.
know, as peace. I burn myself because I'm human. I feel pain. You're gonna
Hmm.
feel pain. You can't be happy if you're feeling pain. You can still be at peace though when you feel that. If
Yeah.
you attain peace, you can still move through all those things that us imperfect people have to go through. You
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. Absolutely. So, real quick before we go, how is music? Not listening to music. I mean, obviously you love music. It's all over the place with the dime bag picture in the background. You got a Lemmy painting upstairs.
Yeah.
You got guitars all over the place, but how has music kind of changed your mentality?
Well, before it used to just be an entertainment factor. It was always fun. I was always around it. But now it's a therapeutic thing. It's another thing where, I can take an experience and put it on paper, play something, and go, that fits how I feel about this certain topic. And it's therapeutic. It's a therapy that, I encourage anybody to learn how to play just even a basic level guitar, because there's something about it. Like, I was going through playing some acoustic stuff yesterday. I heard something. I hit this wrong note, and then I was like, "Shit, that sounds like crap." And so then I was listening to a guy talk about theory, and he says, "Look, man, if you're not hitting a wrong note, who said that? I think it was Steve I or somebody. He said, if you're not hitting the wrong note, that means you're not learning and progressing, you know." And so the great thing about music is you're always learning, but you pick up where you left off when you put the guitar down the last time. You pick it up and you go, okay, I can expand on that. And it keeps getting better and a bigger emotion and a different kind of piece every time, you know. So music carries a little bit of spirituality with it for me. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
I can relate. I can definitely relate. Well, I want to say that I'm extremely proud of you.
Oh, thank you. I'm proud of you too. I don't
Um,
think.
I, I'm proud of you because you're a completely different person now, and like I said before, you're one of my best friends, and I've seen the transition my whole life.
Right, right
I've
on.
I've seen the highs, I've seen the lows, I've seen the extreme highs and the extreme lows.
Yeah,
Um,
I was always missing a couple pieces that I had to find, and it takes a long time to find it. I'm a quick
yeah.
study. It only took me 55 years. I'm pretty quick.
Hey, some people never get it.
Yeah, I still ain't got it all, but I'm not a sensei at this shit either. I know it works for me. You
Yeah,
know.
yeah. I'm extremely proud of you because you just continue to do the next right thing, and if if something doesn't work, you cut it out and you move on. And a lot of people like to stick with the unhealthy shit and say, "See, it's not working for me, but I'm still keep doing it." And I'm glad that you're at that point in your life right now where you're like, okay, it's not working for me. I don't need it in my life.
Yeah, if there's some unhealthy in my life or some that's not peaceful or if it interrupts the goal that I have or that her and I have or anything else, I remove it. Period,
Yeah,
without question. A person, a place, or a thing.
yeah,
Period. It doesn't matter who it is, and I've
yeah,
had to do that with some very close people in my life. You know what I
yeah.
mean?
Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely. All right, well, Dad, if you had to give somebody a piece of advice about the mental stuff, about about dual diagnosis, or about if they're struggling with like a mental health disorder, what would you say for them?
I would say you need to really, just because you stop the drug or the drink or whatever, you need to check it. I'm not saying everybody's mentally incapacitated, all this other shit. I'm saying this, that you need to address the mental as well. I'm not talking about being drugged out and whatever, but you need to take a look at what the common denominator is in your mental being uh, that you can change, okay, to push you forward up and out of a mental situation. You do need, some people need to go. I've been to therapy several different times, and it wasn't any of that. I mean, that was little pieces. It was me coming to the understanding of who I was. Let's see, I hadn't gone to therapy in 10 years before everything fell apart. It wasn't any of that. It was certainly a part of some subliminal things that I stored in the back of my head, but I had to put a whole bunch of things together. You need to keep working at it. Look at the common denominator in you and your decision makings and stuff, and get get some help. Have someone, you know, all therapist is a person that you can bounce things off of, and they can say, "Hey, here's some life 101 shit." Okay, if you don't want to do that, start figuring out your higher powers. Hold yourself accountable. Mental illness, mental stuff is so difficult to because it's very individualized. You know, it's everybody responds to it different. Uh, some of the things you can do, use the resources there, peers, peer support, uh, you know, therapy. Go to find people that feel the same way you do, that used to feel the same way. Bounce things off them, man. They'd be more than happy to help you
Yeah.
because they're doing better in their life. But
Yeah.
don't sit there and keep reliving the same nightmare
Yeah.
because again, you're going to just get what you always got.
Yeah. Yeah. And one last thing before we leave, you hit on this, and this is something I want to hit on. There's a common misconception that you have to have people in your life, even if they're toxic, because sometimes they're going to change. No, you don't. No, you can cut people the fuck out of your life
Yeah,
if they're not benefiting you, they're not benefiting your recovery, or if they're creating a hazardous environment to you and for you. You know,
yeah,
there's times where I cut my dad out,
yeah,
and because it was a reckless time in both of our lives, and and, if it's meant to be, it comes back around. If it's not meant to be, they'll stay away.
yeah,
Uh, I've cut other close people, like my dad said. I've cut a lot of close people out in my life, and that's okay. Because, like I said, if they're meant to come back in your life, they're going to come back in your life. If they're not meant to, man.
yeah. I mean, things are again. It's part of a big plan
Mm-hmm.
that we don't know about.
Yep.
So,
Yep. Yep.
hey, I got look. You know, be straightforward and honest. I got to take a piss.
All right. All right, guys. Well, that is our show. Thank you for sitting with us for about an hour and a half, and
Jeez.
and we're gonna do it again, but we're gonna do it on Extraordinary.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're gonna talk about some music on Extraordinary.
Oh boy.
But all right, guys, thanks for being here. Thanks for hanging out, and much love. Be good till next time. I'll see you guys later.
See ya.
Bye.